We're now on Daf Pei Gimel and Beis, and we're beginning the parak called Kisi Adam. And by way of introduction, we'll just quote the pasuk in Vayikra Yud Zayin. The pasuk says, "V'ish ish mi bnei Yisrael minager hagar b'socham asher yatzud tzayid tzeid chaya o of asher yochel v'shafach es domo v'kiso ba'ofar." So today's kickoff of Kisi Adam will focus on the following issues in this pasuk. First of all, it says chaya o of. And now the question is there a loch of Kisi Adam in behema? Right, we have three categories of animals. And the answer is that since it specifies chaya o of, apparently it's coming to exclude behema. And we're not going to apply the principle of behema b'chlal chaya that we spent a lot of time on a few blot ago. The second issue is asher yatzud tzayid, which sounds like we're talking about eno mizuman, which you remember is a concept that is high profile with regard to shiluach hakan, which means eno mizuman, that you happen to chance upon the mother bird and this. So now, if we saw already in the pasuk that it's yatzud tzayid, which is an Eina Mizumon, like the case of Shiluach HaKan, that's out there in the forest in the wilderness. So maybe, therefore, you would think, and that's what we have to analyze, if you have a local bird or chaya, deer. Again, I don't know how you have a local deer, but maybe you captured a deer. That's the pasuk says you captured a deer. Got to be pretty good at at that. So then you're chayiv in kisi adam. But if you have, I'm sorry, but if you have your own local, deer, in a deer, that's the Hebrew word, in a deer in a deer, then or an oaf in your own private control, then maybe that's not called kiyotzid, and therefore you're not chayiv in kisi adam. Then we add another question here. It says asher ye'ochel. So asher yochel means that you had a shechita, and now the dam comes spurting out. You have to cover the dam. And why is that? Because asher yochel, because the shechita was a shechita ru'uya, which means that the shechita was mater achila. And finally, the kiso b'ofar. What kind of ofar? Do we need ofar on top to cover it? What about ofar on the bottom? So let's begin the Mishnah Unhaven, chapter 6. Kisi Adam noig ba'aretz u'b'chutzlaretz b'fnei abayis lo b'fnei abayis. And the Rishonim will ask the question, why did the Mishnah have to tell us this halacha? The only kind of mitzvah that's limited to Eretz Yisrael is what's called a chovas karka. We're not talking about a chovas karka, we're talking about a chovas shchita of an animal. But the answer lies in the next part of the Mishnah, b'fnei abayis v'shalo b'fnei abayis. I'm sorry. B'chulin avalo b'mukdosh. If we would have assumed that we're talking about Mukdashim, then it might depend upon Eretz Yisrael, and it might depend upon the bias. But since this halacha of mitzvahs kisi adam only applies to Chullin and not to Mukdashim, therefore it's not limited neither to Eretz Yisrael nor to the binyan of bias. Noig b'chaya ba'of, but not to behemoth. B'mezuman u'b'she'eno mezuman, whether or not you had to go out and eno mezuman, you had to capture it, hunt it down, or even if it's mezuman, it's in your local deer. And v'noig b'koi mipnei shu safek. We had a whole bunch of interpretations what koi is, whether it's a hybrid of a deer and a goat, whether it's a separate entity unto itself. But the bottom line is, no matter how you interpret koi, we don't know whether it's a chaya or a behemoth. Therefore, mitzad safek, you have to be machmir and do the kisi adam, but you can't do it on yontif. And ein shochten aso b'yontif im shchato ein mechasen es dom, because kisi adam is a violation of yontif. It's not a doraisa violation. And the truth is that even if he knew for sure that it was a chaya, he would still not violate yontif if violation of Yontif would be doraisa. But since the violation of Yontif here is only muktzah derabanan, therefore, if he would be absolutely certain that he's chayiv kisi adam, then the vadai mitzvah of kisi adam would override the isur muktzah. But since in the case of a koi we're left with a suffix, therefore it doesn't override the isur of muktzah. The Gemara says the following: Mukdashim my time alone. So this is going to be the real focal point of our discussion here, Pei Gimel Amid Beis. Why is it that the mitzvah of Kisi Adam doesn't apply to Kachim? Now, keep in mind, there's no Kachim in Chaya, so we're only talking about an oaf. Now, in the case of oaf, we have two kinds of karbanos of an oaf. We have Olas HaOf, and we have Chatas HaOf. We're going to focus our attention on Olas HaOf. Now, in the case of an oaf, there's no shchita in Kodshim. In Kodshim, there's malika. But malika is halachically shchita. And therefore, we would have said logically that if you shecht olas ha'of, then you chayiv kisi adam. So why is he not obligated in kisi adam? Ilema mishum Rabbi Zera. Now, we're going to have Rab Zera twice in this sugya on two different counts, but the first count that we have it here is the Omer Rab Zera, Shochet Tzor She'itein Ofel Amata V'Ofel Amal. That the mitzvah of Kisi Adam is a sandwich. We'll call it a sandwich. It's not enough to cover the dam on top, but you also have to have ofar on the bottom below the dam. So the dam is sandwiched between the offer on the bottom and the offer on the top. Shenemar. From whence does Rabbi Zera derive such a strange halacha? The Torah says v'kiso. Kiso means covered on top. Who says that you have to have offer on the bottom? Shenemar v'shafach es dova v'kiso be'ofar. It should have said v'shafach es dova v'kiso offer. Cover it with dirt. But instead it says, be'ofar. What does be'ofar mean? It means that the dam is completely surrounded by ofar. Malamet shashochet tzor she'itein ofar lamata u'lamala. Okay, fine. I can swallow that pill, but what does it have to do with mukdash? What does it have to do with olas ha'of? V'hacha, in the case of olas ha'of, lo efshar. There's no possibility of having offer below the dam. Why not? So here we're going to go through two scenarios, possibly, and then we're going to introduce another halacha, another principle of Reb Zera, the same Reb Zera, in a different context. Hechi liafet. Now here you have a problem. We have in Masechta Midos a certain midah of the Mizbech. Let's say the height of the Mizbech has to be 10 amos. But David HaMelech teaches Shlomo HaMelech, his son, that you're not allowed to change the Midos. That's based on a pasuk in Tanakh, which I should know by heart, but right now, I apologize, it escapes my memory. Anyway. So therefore, if you add earth to the Mizbeach, and it becomes part of the Mizbeach, then you violated this Isur of adding to the size of the Mizbeach. So therefore, maybe you want to say that you'll be mavatal it, you'll decide that you're going to leave the offer on top of the altar forever and ever. Then come Moshe Abinyan. Okay, I thought he would help me by quoting the pasuk because I'm a little bit angry at myself that I don't remember the pasuk. Okay. Okay, it's coming. Anyway. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. It's right here on the page. Uksiv Hakol biksav miyad Hashem alai hiskil. This is King David in Divrei Hayomim was authored by King David, and when he gives Shlomo Melech the plan for the Mikdash, he declares that everything is in writing by the hand of Hashem. Like I got the plan for the Mikdash in writing from Hashem. I'd love to buy that manuscript, which he gave me understanding to know all the works of the plan. Lo levatli, the Gemara says, okay, so why does he have to be mevatel? Let him say to himself, I'm putting dirt on the Mizbeach on a temporary basis. I'm not changing the size and the height of the Mizbeach. I'm not violating the Isur of Hakol B'Ksav Miyad Hashem Olai Hiskil. Is Kahavi Chatzitza. Now, Kahavi Chatzitza means that if we open up the pasuk in Vayikra Perek Aleph, pasuk Hey, it says with regard to Olas Ha'of, it says V'nimtza damo al kir hamizbeach. Let's see the English translation here. Right, he has to squeeze the blood from the neck of the oaf directly onto the wall of the mizbeach of the altar. Directly meaning al kir mizbeach, without any chatzitza, without anything that separates. What's the fancy English word? Interposes between the dam of hazah of the oaf and the mizbeach, the kira mizbeach. So therefore, if you're going to leave this offer on the mizbeach, then, and you can't be mevatel it, then it's going to serve as a chatzitza because it's not part of the mizbeach; it's earth, and it's going to separate the dam of hazah of the oaf from the mizbeach. So Gemara says, wait a minute, you're assuming that just because he can't put the earth underneath the dam of Kisi Adam, therefore it's an all or nothing proposition. Why can't he fulfill the mitzvah of Kisui in a fallback position, b'di'eved, simply by covering the dam milos hanya? Don't we have a verse that says, Rabbi Nosson and Yosef Omer, shochat chaya v'yachach shochat behema potem milechasos, but behema v'yachach chaya chayav lechasos. So if he first shechted an animal of a behema, and on top of that he shechted a chaya, and now he can't put the offer below the dam of the chaya because immediately below the chaya is behema, then he just covers it on top. Anyway, you see clearly from Rabbi Yonasan that in event that you cannot cover the dam from underneath lamata, then okay, so the fallback position, you cover it lamala. So why don't we do this? So now the Gemara has to introduce another Abzera, which we have all over Shas. Kidder Abzera, the Abzera, kol haroy lebila, ein bila makeves bo, v'chol she'ein haroy lebila, is bila makeves bo. Now we differentiate between the two cases. In the case where he shechts a chaya on top of behema, then as far as the shechita of the chaya is concerned, he could do kisi adam by putting ofar underneath it. There's just a technical problem here that underneath the chaya there's behema. But it's royal labila. As far as we look at the shechita of the chaya, that shechita would generate, under normal circumstances, kisi adam lilamata. But in the case of an olas ha'of, there, by very virtue of the mitzvah of Hazoya, you cannot imagine that in any scenario whatsoever there would ever be a possibility of having a kisi below. And therefore it's Ein Roy Labila, and if it's Ein Roy Labila, says Reb Zera, is Bila Makevis. But the Gemara says, I don't get it. Why do you think it's impossible to combine both A, the Hazas Dam of the Ola, and B, the Kisi Adam? Ligrare v'lichse. Why doesn't he just do the Hazah directly onto the Kir HaMizbeach, and then he's allowed to scrape off the Dam and do Kisi Adam with that Dam in a different place, in a different location where he has the offer first? Milo Tanan, don't we have a Mishnah later on in Masechta Chullin? Dam Hanitas, that you can do greira, meaning you can scrape off the dam. Vishala sakin, like for example, let's say after you shechted it, there's still dam on the sakin. And now scrape it off and set up a kisi adam. So that even if you did the hazoya of the oaf directly onto the kira mizbeach, who cares? Let's do greira. And after we do greira, we scrape off the dam, and now you can do kisi adam. Is hachinami here too? After the Kohen squeezes the blood onto the kir hamizbeach, is nigrar will scrape off the dam, and will do a kisui kedarko, kir mitzvaso, kir chaso, with both earth on the bottom and earth on the top. So I think we have about 2 minutes left, but this always happens that when you get to the end of the daf, it gets complicated, but let's try. We have something called ha'amada va'arocha. What does that mean? That means when you want to be poda, for example, you can't be poda kedusha guf unless it has a mum. But if, let's say, there's a mum in the animal, you could be poda. But in order to do pdi on kodshim, you need hamad v'arocha, which means you have to stand up the animal, literally. Have the animal stand in front of the Kohen, and the Kohen tells you what its worth is, what's its market value, that's called harocha, and then you give that money as pigeon to be poda the hegdish. Now, in the case of kodshim, why not assume that you could be poda it? Even kodshim is beach hochinami. You can be poded. And you'll go ahead and you'll be poded, and then you'll do kisi adam. There's no problem. You circumvent the whole problem of hazah and chatzitza and all that. But rather, hachamay eskinon, our Mishnah is addressing a case of kodshe bedek habayis. Now, the assumption is that in kodshe bedek habayis, if the gift that was given to the for the upkeep of the temple, it's called in English, but bedek habayis, if that gift is an animal and it's dead, then once it's dead, there's no pigeon. Why? Because it doesn't lend itself to harocha and hamada. You can't be mamid and set up an animal on its 4 feet if it's already dead. So therefore, our Mishnah is talking about a case of kodshe bedek habayis, and therefore there's no possibility of doing a shchita that would be matir the basar. Why? Because you can only do shchita and matir the basar if it lends itself to pigeon. But in case of bedek habayis, there's no pigeon because once the animal is dead, it doesn't lend itself. In fact, why do you tell me you can't do shchita? Why can't he first redeem the animal, be poded from hegdesh, do amad varoch, and then after you pay the money to hegdesh, to the bedek habayis, now you can eat it. After pigeon, there's no isa me'ila. And the Gemara says be'idin hamad varoch, and for amad varoch, in order to set a pigeon, you need a live animal that's standing on all fours. Ukeman. Now, who's the author of our Mishnah? Because again, you have to combine 2 things together. You have to assume that shchita sheina ruya lav shev shchita, and you have to assume that be'inon we require hamad varocha. Ik Rabbi Meir di Omer Akol hoyu b'chlal hamad varocha. If you're going to tell me that the author of that Mishnah is Rabbi Meir happens to hold that even on a dead animal you could do harocha v'arama. And Omer shchita sheina ruya shmei shchita. Just 1 second. Just 1 second, I'm sorry. Rabbi Meir holds in Masechta Tmura, and Stam Mishnah's Rabbi Meir, that even an animal that's kodesh, cannot be redeemed after its death. And therefore, since there's no possibility of, according to Rabbi Meir, of Hamod Varocha and therefore Pidyon, in a case of Kodesh Bedek Habayis, is therefore it's a Shchita Sheina Ruya. Because if you're not poded, then it belongs to Hegdesh, and there's an Isur Me'ila, and the Shchita can't be mat to the Basa. But the problem is, Rabbi Meir happens to be of the opinion, Amar Shchita Sheina Ruya Shmei Shchita. So therefore, with regard to the mitzvah of Kisi Adam, even if the Shchita is not mat to the Basar, but you went ahead and shechted it and there's dam, you have to be machasa the dam. And therefore there's no possibility of being poda it, removing the Isa Me'ila, shechting it, and being mat to the Basar, Shchita Shena Ruya, and therefore it doesn't generate a chiyuv of Kisi Adam. Ha'amar, but it happens to be the Reb Shimon's opinion against Reb Meir is lo hayu b'chlal amod v'arocha, that even animals like the the Bedek Habayis animals, the Kedushas Bedek Habayis, even so, you can go ahead and you can be poded. Omar Rav Yosef, Rebbe, it's a third sheet in Tanoi. V'nasim lo aliba de Tanoi, and he takes each sheet of Tanoim and he combines it, meaning, b'shchita sheina ruya savalo ki Reb Shimon. And therefore, unless you could do Pidyon on this oath of Bedek Habayis, such that now you remove the Isa Me'ila and the Shchita would be mat to the Basar, then it doesn't generate Kisi Adam. Because Shchita, Shena Ruya, like Reb Shimon, is Eina Shchita, is B'Hamod V'Harocha Savalak Reb Meir, but he nevertheless holds, with regard to Hamod V'Harocha, that you can do Pidyon. Just 1 second. No, I'm sorry. I keep making that same mistake. That according to Reb Meir, so again, he shechted the animal for Bedek Habayis. It cannot be redeemed. And why can it not be redeemed? Because Saval Lo Ki Rabbi Meir B'Hamod V'Harocha. There are Meir who says that even in Bedek Habayis we require Harocha and Hamoda. And therefore in Bedek Habayis there's no possibility of Pidyon after the animal is dead through Shechita, and therefore the Shechita is not going to be matir the animal for Pidyon because there is no possibility of Pidyon. Therefore the Shechita was not matir the Achila, and therefore it's a Shechita Shena Ruya, and Rebbe holds like Reb Shimon that Shechita Shena Ruya lav shem Shechita. Okay, Rabbosai, this is where we'll stop for today here on Daf Pei Dal. Now, we have to negotiate tomorrow.